Today's episode is sponsored by Craft Industry Alliance. Craft Industry Alliance is a trade association for makers, designers, suppliers, and content creators. I co-founded Craft Industry Alliance along with Kristen Link of the site Sew Mama Sew in October of 2015, and we are now at over 1,200 members. Stay on top of industry news and trends and best practices, and join a supportive community of fellow business owners. Join today at craftindustryalliance.org. And now, here's the show. Welcome to episode 105 of the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today, we're talking about building a career as a designer with my guest, Christine Ricks. Christine is the creative director for Missouri Star Quilt Company's publishing department, working with a team to design and produce their magazines Block and Mod Block. She's trained as a graphic designer and has taken up quilting as another medium to express her creative self. Christine spent 10 years prior to her current position working in surface pattern design and contributing to several fabric lines for Basic Gray's Moda lines. She also contributes to the Modern Quilt Guild's Quilt of the Month and served as president of the Salt Lake Modern Quilt Guild last year. Christine Ricks, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great talking to you. You've been someone on my radar for a while, so it's really nice to sit down and talk and hear a little bit more about what it is that you do and how you got where you are. So let's start with the Missouri Star Quilt Company. You are the creative director there, as I said, for the publishing division, and I wondered what that job entails. I know last week you were in Hamilton doing some work on the magazine. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it actually entails quite a bit, but it's a lot to do with layout of the magazine. I oversee all the content that goes into the magazine. I don't necessarily design the quilts, but I review the quilts with our managing editor, Natalie Earnhardt, and she and I kind of go over the content and plan out what we want each issue to incorporate and kind of the emphasis on it, and then we kind of move forward with articles, and especially for Block, we do a lot of stories contributed by Jenny Doan, and also by some of our employees and customers as well, which is kind of fun to see that come to fruition as we work with those people. I help with that, and then I also lay out the magazine. Like you said, I have graphic design experience. I've been working in graphic design for over 20 years, more than that probably. So I have a lot of experience in just layout and design, and work with our photographer studio that is in-house with Missouri Star, and that's actually what I was doing last week in Hamilton. I was assisting on the photo shoot that we were doing for this upcoming issue of Block.
And can you describe just a little bit about Block, like what the magazine is and what it features, and maybe what sets it apart from other quilting magazines that might be on the market?
Block is really a great magazine in that it doesn't have any advertising in it, which is something that when we first concepted this idea was kind of unheard of. We offer a lot of our patterns. We have up to 10 patterns that we feature in each magazine, and they come from our tutorials that Jenny Doan does on our YouTube channel. So we take her concept of the blocks and the quilts that she's making, and then we turn them into actual patterns for the magazine. As far as content, like I said, there's 10 patterns. There's usually a couple of other articles along with that. We have Jenny's classroom, which is really fun. She kind of likes to give tips and techniques. Sometimes we also feature what's happening in the town, if you're not aware of it, but we have 13 I think, 13 stores on the main street in Hamilton, Missouri. And there's a lot of kind of exciting stuff that happens in the town that we're also involved with as well from a community standpoint and also a quilting standpoint. So sometimes we like to feature what's going on there, or if we have new buildings coming up, or if there's something exciting going on in our employees' lives, sometimes we will feature that as well.
And where is Block sold? Is it just sold at those quilt shops in Hamilton and online, obviously, because Missouri Star has a really robust website, but is it just sold there or is it sold elsewhere?
We do have wholesale for any quilt shop that would like to get the magazine into their own quilts or into their own shops. We have a few different avenues. We're looking into a few more in the coming year, but as of right now, it's online with subscriptions. If you want to subscribe, you can definitely go to our website and sign up. And then if you just want to purchase just one magazine or all of them, you can buy them individually online or in our stores. And like I said, through the shops.
I see. And is there a digital version, like an e-PDF?
There is.
Okay.
Yeah, we do offer a digital version. And that's kind of cool. When you subscribe as a subscription, you get that free with your purchase.
Is the price point, I mean, I know there's no advertisements. So is the price point similar to other quilting magazines, or is it more or less, sort of substantially?
It's substantially less, actually. It's $5.99 for each issue, which is a steal in my personal opinion. Most magazines go for $15 to $20 per issue, and yeah, we offer ours at $6 relatively, and it's a great value. You get 10 patterns in there that are all, inclusive patterns that you can make and use, and it's kind of awesome.
I sometimes see people on the Missouri Star Facebook page showing pictures of their copies, and they've taken them to this copy shop and had them spiral bound so that they can open them flat, which I thought was pretty brilliant.
We get lots of suggestions for that. We're actually kind of going through a revamp right now of the magazine. There will be probably some, maybe not significant changes in this next coming year, but definitely that was kind of one of the topics of discussion, is whether or not we would offer that as a spiral bound version. And I don't know that we're going to do that right now, but there are some discussions as to offering something similar, maybe in an anniversary issue sometime in the future.
I say, yeah, because people kind of like it when they can get their book or magazine to lay flat next to them while they're sewing. So that's a good solution. So I'm curious how you got this job, because obviously you're a graphic designer, so you're qualified and you're a quilter, so that's not my question, but it's more around how you connected with Missouri Star. Did you just see an ad on LinkedIn or something, or did you make a connection at Quilt Market, or was there some personal referral? Because it's always interesting to hear how did somebody land where they are?
Yeah, it was kind of serendipitous, actually. I was working for Basic Gray at the time, and we have that connection with Moda as far as taking some of the scrapbooking patterns that we had done at Basic Gray and transferring them to fabric designs. So we had a really pretty close connection with Moda, and not that they really knew me specifically, but Al Doan at the time was reaching out to various people looking for a director who would help him produce this magazine. And through a couple of connections that he had through Moda and others, he made the connection with my boss at Basic Gray and was able to kind of talk to her about the project and kind of wheeled and dealed and finally got her to give my number to him, and we kind of met up and talked, and I was very interested at the time, kind of ready to make some changes in my own life and kind of interested in having some creative freedom as far as just taking this little magazine and making it my own. So it was kind of a perfect storm that happened as far as transferring pretty seamlessly from Basic Grade to Missouri Star. But yeah, it does, those kind of experiences definitely, it's all about kind of who you know. And I know a lot of times that especially for people who may be listening, and that's kind of frustrating to hear, but you never know what kind of connections you'll make. So I always kind of look forward to just opportunities to talk to new people and to make new connections. And even if I hadn't really been interested in this job initially, it was just a good opportunity to talk to Al and kind of get to know him better. So it just ended up working out for me.
Yeah, that's a great
point.
In
the end.
Yeah, it's a great point to make, which is that even if you feel as though, oh no, I'm not interested in that sort of job, it is still interesting to take the call and hear a little bit more. And one thing does lead to another sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. But just to hear somebody out and to find out more is always worth doing, I think. And did Block exist at that time, or was it like a concept and they hired you to kind of make it a reality?
It was a concept, yep.
And I'm wondering why they decided to self-publish, because it seems to me like a pretty unusual step for, I mean, granted, Missouri Star is a pretty unusual business. It's not your run-of-the-mill quilt shop. There's probably nothing really like it, at least not in the United States. But so it is already coming from an unusual place. But then to say, well, we're going to self-publish this magazine and do this all in-house, I mean, it's a big step. So do you know anything about the background there?
It was just an idea that Al had, and I don't know if you know much about him, but he's very much an entrepreneur. He is highly involved in a lot of different small business ventures, and they had the content. They had the ability to take and write the patterns that they needed, and I think his vision really kind of spurred that on as far as just being able to make it happen. It started out just being 3 people working on this magazine, which is kind of crazy, I'm sure, for a lot of publishing companies out there to hear that. But it was me, Natalie Earnhardt, and not copywriter. She was a pattern writer at the time, that kind of spurred this into reality. And it was luckily a success. We were able to kind of do it, and now we have a larger team of people to help us to accomplish it. But it really was just kind of this personal project that Natalie and I took on and really just passionately made it happen. And it has been a great experience to be a part of it. It's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And you work remotely, right? Because Missouri Star, as we said, is in Hamilton, Missouri, and you're in Salt Lake City.
That's correct.
Okay. So do you do a lot of the work remotely, like as a contractor, and then you just fly out to Hamilton for the photo shoots and maybe some other things?
I'm actually a full-time employee. I am remote. But a lot of the things that I do is just communicating information to other people. Like I said, I do most of the layout, so that information just gets fed into me. And then up until just about a year ago, we were doing the photo shoots here in Salt Lake with a photography company here. And that worked really well. They would just ship the quilts to me when the time came for us to photo shoot, and then I'd ship them back or take them back with me when I was flying back there. I fly back there every couple of months now. It wasn't quite as much when I was doing the photo shoots in Salt Lake, but now I'm usually there every couple of months and kind of meeting with people. I'll be there for a week and get our photo shoots in and some meetings, and it's worked out really well. It's surprisingly easy to handle.
Yeah. It's a neat working, sort of setup, it's sort of mostly remote, which is interesting as a full-time employee. So, but I think that's cool. There's a lot is possible now. You don't always have to be right there on site. So, you can keep your lifestyle the way it was and still do this, which is pretty cool. So
yeah, it's definitely something I feel lucky to be able to do. I enjoy it, and I enjoy working from home too. It's great. I can't complain. It's been really a great experience.
Yeah, I'm a fan of working from home as well. So, I'm just wondering about your upbringing. Did you grow up in a creative household? Were you always, a maker and a creative person?
Yeah, I was. I actually have some grandparents that are pretty creative, and then my father was an architect by profession, and my mother, she was a school teacher. She's retired now, but I look back on that, and I don't know that a lot of, obviously, creativity was expressed as a form of being able to express myself. From an early age, I remember just being really interested in art and loving that experience of just making things. And I think just the encouragement of those people, my parents and my grandparents, to kind of spur me along to continue to do that was really influential for me. So yeah, I took art classes all through high school, and got into a program at Ricks College at the time. It's now BYU Hawaii, or BYU Idaho. And that was really the start of my graphic design experience. I did a lot of just fine art when I was in high school. But then I got into the graphic design program and started from there and transferred to BYU after a couple of years, and got my associates with Ricks College and then my BFA with BYU.
I see. And were you, I'm not sure how old you are, but was your training like in, Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator and Adobe products, or were you sort of there before that hit, or sort of what did you use in college?
I used a printer. No, I actually was on just the cusp of when Adobe was coming on the scene there, and computers were kind of being more utilized in that process. I do remember a little bit of the stat machines, and used to do layout with wax and cutting little strips of paper type and putting it all together. That was, I think, definitely towards the end of where I was beginning. So I didn't really have a ton of experience with that, but I do remember the process a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I'm not that old, but I still had definite experiences with PageMaker and QuarkXPress, which are programs that probably most millennials have no idea about. But it was really kind of fascinating and interesting to see how that changed things prospectively for graphic design. I kind of actually missed some of the layout aspects and the kind of hands-on experiences that graphic design used to offer, but I am definitely grateful for computers these days. I don't know how I'd be able to do my job without them at this point. So it's been a grateful experience to just be able to learn those programs and be able to have a lot of experience working with them.
Yeah, I mean, maybe quilting in some way fills the gap of the hands-on design. I mean, it's obviously not graphic design, but I feel like there are some elements that are similar. You're designing on a 2D backdrop, and a lot of it has to do with color and composition and layout. I mean, there are some similarities, and I find that there's quite a few graphic designers who have become quilt designers, perhaps for that reason, that it's a little bit more hands-on, but still sort of scratches the same itch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. It was kind of funny because I've really only been quilting for about 6 years, and that's actually part of what got me the job at Missouri Star as well, is that Al was specifically looking for someone who had some quilting experience. He didn't think that just hiring a graphic designer that was out of school or, had a lot of just other experience would really make the cut or fit the bill for this magazine. And it really has made a huge difference. Definitely having that experience under my belt made the job a whole lot easier and able to kind of comprehend kind of the big picture, but also the nuances of just pattern writing and how things would lay out and how we wanted it to flow. So that was really kind of a great opportunity for me to get involved in quilting. It definitely goes back to my surface design and my pattern design experience, where I have this great love of fabric and patterns, and kind of seeing that and then incorporating that into another sort of way of including those patterns in another layout or another design was really kind of right up my alley.
I want to take a minute now to talk about Craft Industry Alliance, the sponsor of today's episode. I'm a co-founder of Craft Industry Alliance, and I have my co-founder here with me, Kristen Link of the site Sew Mama Sew. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Abby. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me. So, do you want to explain a little bit about who Craft Industry Alliance is best for?
One of the things I'm most proud of is the career diversity of our members. We always suspected that the sewing maker community would join because those are our friends and colleagues. But I'm really glad we've also been able to get members from the yarn, paper craft, ceramics, and jewelry communities. We have makers, designers, retailers, authors, and teachers. It's also really wonderful to see so many people join who are service providers to the craft community. They're photographers, copy editors, graphic designers, accountants, and lawyers who make their living by working with craft professionals.
Membership includes a lot of neat things. So first, you get a twice monthly digital journal with professionally written articles about what's happening in the industry and delving into best practices for things like contracts, insurance, bookkeeping, and all that good stuff. And then we also hold a webinar every month, which is taught by an industry expert. And we have had so many terrific webinars over the 2 years that we've been up and running, including one that was one of my favorites, taught by Kate All of Simple Pin Media, all about Pinterest for craft business owners. And this month we heard from brick and mortar shop owners about what is happening in craft retail, which was also a fantastic webinar. And if you join Craft Industry Alliance today, you get access to the archives of all of those webinars and all of our past journal issues. And then we also have a lot of things for building community among members. Do you want to talk a little bit about our forums and meetups?
Sure. In our online forums, our members discuss business issues. They discuss like where to buy certain products, recommendations for teaching platforms, accounting questions, and so on. Additionally, they're making connections. So when someone needs an editor or a photographer, they can actually find someone right there in our forums. We also have a coffee clutch, we call it. What it is an online meeting twice a month. It's open-ended. So our members come and they grab a cup of coffee, and it might be a dozen members, and they can see each other on the screen. And they talk about important issues and bounce ideas off of each other and ask questions. It's really neat.
Yeah, this has been wonderful. So Craft Industry Alliance is affordable for businesses of all sizes. You can join for 6 months to try it out, or you can commit for a year and save a little bit on membership. And I encourage you to head over to craftindustryalliance.org and check it out. Thank you for joining me, Kristen.
Thanks, Abby.
And now back to my conversation with Christine. How did you get introduced to quilting? Did you see an ad for a class, or did a friend show you, some quilt? So a lot of people, I feel like, especially in the modern quilt movement, sort of went and saw an exhibit of the Gee's Bend quilts, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, this is what I need to do. I don't know what your story is as far as being introduced to quilting and deciding, hey, I'm going to cut up some fabric and try this.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, actually, because I had experiences with both of those things fairly early on. I remember in my early 30s, I'm 44. I can't remember how old I am. 45. And then deciding that I wanted to make a quilt for myself. For some reason, I had had this idea in the back of my head that I was like, oh, I'm in my 30s. I need to have this rite of passage where I make myself a quilt, which is really funny now that I think about it. I still have that quilt and I look at it and I'm like, oh, wow, that's so not my style anymore. But I started with that. And then I had a friend who gave me a Gee's Bend book that she gifted me for a birthday present. And I loved it. I just turned those pages and still just am in awe of everything that's in there. So that was early on. And then about 6 years ago, I had a friend living in my neighborhood who was an avid quilter and a part of the Salt Lake Modern Quilt Guild here when it first started to kind of become more popular. And I think that was really kind of in the early days of the National Modern Quilt Guild movement. But she was heavily involved in that, had some really good friends that were quilters, and she decided that she was going to share that talent with a few of her other close friends and started a little quilting bee. And that was really my first real experience delving into what quilting was. And every month we got together and sewed, and it was really I really mostly saw it as just a social aspect. I really didn't see myself like getting into quilting. But I remember that first gathering that we got together, and I didn't even have my own sewing machine at the time. I borrowed my mother's, and we met and started sewing one of these blocks, and it just like immediately turned something on inside of me. And I went away from that experience that evening, like dreaming of all these quilts that I was going to make, and just really kind of caught fire. And I haven't really turned back since. I've been making quilts for quite a while now, and it's still kind of an exciting experience to go through. I don't really follow a lot of patterns. I like to kind of create my own, or revise the ones that I see and kind of make them my own. So that's been kind of fun for me to also experience as far as this process goes.
And I was watching a video of you at QuiltCon, at QuiltCon 2017 in Savannah, I believe. Yep. You were talking about the quilt that maybe you had more than one quilt on display there, but you were talking about one of the ones that you had on display. And we're talking a little bit about your influences in designing. And this one was really influenced by mid-century modern design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Funky Medina, which has like a really 80s name to it. So it's not really super appropriate, but yeah, that was a really fun quilt to do. That was the second quilt that I had entered in the Modern Quilt Guild Quilt of the Month that was accepted. And that was kind of my first experience with paper piecing. I have all these ideas, but sometimes they're not really the typical or traditional block experience. And so I had done kind of a variation of a smaller sketch that I had been working on and experimented a little bit with paper, foundation paper piecing, and was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And I can just make whatever I want and just fit it to these pieces. That kind of opened a whole new experience for me as far as what I could create and make. And so I started with the Funky Medina as just kind of an oversized, fairly simple paper piecing experiment. And it was just really kind of modern and bright colors, and just really enjoyed putting that together and making something that was fairly unique, but also just really kind of honed in on my own experiences with learning and growing with that process.
And you were saying that you submitted that one and it was accepted to the Modern Quilt Guild's Quilt of the Month. Do you want to explain that program and how that works? And is it open for submissions? So if listeners are out there and are members of the Modern Quilt Guild and want to have one of their designs considered?
Yeah, it's great. The first year, I think we're going on to our fourth year, I submitted a design in the very beginning that they started that program. through their website. They had just a call for entries, and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. Maybe I'll do that. And came up with a couple of designs. They just usually accept, you don't have to do a full quilt to submit your design. Just a sketch or an EQ design can be just fine. And then you just go to their website. I believe there's a link that you can go to and fill out just a bunch of typical information and then submit a JPEG or probably just a JPEG or a screen capture of your design. And that goes into their database. And then I believe it's Rianne that is the one that kind of takes that and looks things over. And then they kind of pick the designs they feel are most relevant or interesting to what they're doing that year. And then they reach back out to you and say, hey, we liked your quilt. Would you make a pattern out of it? And so I then end up making the quilt, making the pattern, and sending it back into them. And that's within probably 3 to 6 months of the deadline. And you can pick which month you prefer. If you need more time, you can have it towards the end of the year, or if you have it already done. Sometimes it's earlier, but yeah, they're really great to work with. I've really enjoyed working with the Modern Quilt Guild and love the programs that they're doing. That's one of my favorites, especially because it's just anybody can do it, and it's very, very kind of a simple process. If you have an idea, you just submit it, and it goes into this database of things. They're always kind of looking for people to do that for them. There's always kind of a call for entries. Not necessarily for that program, but for any sort of content, articles and webinars and things like that. So they're really open to whatever you think you might have an idea for. If you're interested, they do pay a small amount of money to go towards that. It's been a great experience for me. I really honestly didn't think I would be selected because there's so many amazing people out there that are making really awesome things, but it's been kind of a fun experience and I've really enjoyed it. And it's been really challenging as well to kind of, I feel like it's helped me hone in on my style of quilting a little bit to kind of, as I'm designing, I have so many ideas for quilts. Sometimes I feel like they're kind of all over the place, and it's really kind of helped me figure out what my own personal style is, what I enjoy and what I'd want to put on my walls or on my bed or have hanging in my house. So it's really been a great experience for me personally.
Yeah, and that's a good way to get published. And it sounds like you can even get published for the very first time and get paid for your work as well. So that's a great opportunity to know about. And, membership to the Modern Quilt Guild is fairly inexpensive. And if there isn't one near you, you can become an individual member. So you don't need to be part of a larger group if there isn't one near you. So that's good to know about. And you were just finishing up with the Modern Quilt Guild. You became president of the Salt Lake Modern Quilt Guild last year. And I just wondered what that experience was like. What were the learnings that you took away? I'm assuming that's quite a big job. So I don't know how many members you have and that sort of thing, but what did you take away from that experience? What was particularly challenging or rewarding?
Took away from that experience realizing that I didn't really know what I was doing, but in a good way, I guess. It was really kind of a fun experience. We had a Modern Quilt Guild president for several years prior to that, and I could tell, was getting burned out. And so me and one other woman decided that we kind of come together, and not really having much experience in the modern guild arena, just decided to kind of see if we could kind of refresh things a little bit and kind of invigorate people a little bit more than had been done. So it was just a fun opportunity for me to kind of get to know more of the women in my area and kind of relate to them on kind of more of a personal level than I had previously. But there really is so much you can do with guilds. I'm learning that more and more. I've been able to attend a couple of other guilds. I went to the Kansas City Modern Quilt Guild a couple of months ago, and then also attended the Denver Metro Modern Quilt Guild prior to that. And it's just amazing what these women are doing and creating, and the things and ideas that they're coming up with to kind of motivate their members and to offer opportunities of creativity and exploration. It's been really eye-opening to me. I don't know that I made a huge dent in our Modern Quilt Guild. My schedule changed quite a bit in this last year, and so I wasn't able to continue my presidency. But I feel like our guild is fairly small. We have about 23 active members that come every month, and it's just a really good tight-knit group, and we have a lot of fun. But I really feel like there's so much more that we can do as far as the modern quilt movement, just helping people realize what that is and what it means, and how it can inspire this younger generation of people to start quilting. And I think there's just so many doors that can be opened still to that. I would love to see that happen more in quilt exhibits. I think we have a fairly good quilting community. I know that there are a lot of just regular quilt guilds in my neck of the woods that are really interested in this modern movement. We were invited at one point to go and speak to one of them, and they just really were such a fun group and enjoyed hearing about all of our quilt experiences, and also, kind of offering their own tutorials of how to take care of things, and, things that our younger generation of quilters, we love to use our quilts, and, they're more about preservation, and we learned a lot about how to fold our quilts specifically and take care of them in a more caring way. But it's just I just love this community and everyone that is kind of involved. It's been really fun to get to know them better and learn from them.
Yeah, I like the way that quilting is a way to bridge generations and also to build relationships. Mm-hmm. When you get really involved in something like this, just to be able to meet people, on a global scale, obviously online, but also just in your local area, in, your local community that you may not have encountered. But, through this mutual love, you get to know. And I think that's really nice. And there's so much potential there for all kinds of neat things to happen. So
yeah, I've never met an angry quilter, honestly.
There are some.
To be really happy and positive. So I just love being able to talk to them and get to know them better.
Sure. And bonding over a creative pursuit is really nice. So I want to step back to Basic Gray for a little bit. And you touched on it earlier, but I'd love to, just flesh that out a little bit more. And so Basic Gray, it was really a company. I mean, it still exists, I guess, in a sort of somewhat different form, but it was really a company that launched at the height of the scrapbooking boom, or was really a big participant in scrapbooking, and is now sort of not in the paper business anymore and is focusing on fabric. So were you there for that whole transition?
I came in I actually had been working for another scrapbooking company prior to that here in Utah. We have quite a few of them. But I was working for a design firm that was taking on kind of the rebranding of this other company. So I had previous to that some experience with scrapbooking, and then moved on to Basic Gray and had the opportunity to create some lines for them, and also then came full-time on board with them to create and help them with their current product list. But yeah, it's kind of been a really interesting experience to see how scrapbooking has changed in the last 5 years.
So what was scrapbooking when you first started there? I mean, just so take us back, because I think, there is crossover between quilting and scrapbooking. And in some ways, I don't know, these are industries that are somewhat in flux. So it's interesting to hear how scrapbooking, I think, maybe overall in crafting has really been in flux because of, everything digital changed scrapbooking so much. And we've seen so many companies come and go, or have to really pivot. So what was scrapbooking like when you first got there?
It was still really quite popular. I feel like Basic Gray was especially influential in that trend, if we can call it that, of crafting, in that they came out with a really kind of and Rachel Brenchley, she's the visionary in that company, and really saw this as a potential to create some awesome pattern designs. And that was really, Basic Gray was always kind of, to her, more of a surface design company. She always had ideas and thoughts about taking it to a lot of different areas rather than scrapbooking, but scrapbooking ended up being really the most effective way to get their designs out. But she had a really interesting and different vision as far as just what that meant. And I think that was kind of the turning point for her in that company, is just being able to have this different perspective and introducing that into a fairly, at that time period, a fairly generic form of scrapbooking. She started to introduce, it as more of an art form, and the patterns that she created and the papers that she created and the elements that kind of complemented those things were really more artistic than they had been previously, and that really caught fire. I came on probably a couple years after that and created my own line for them called Stella Ruby at the time. And then probably maybe 6 months later, ended up working for them full time. So it was kind of at the peak of, I feel like, that involvement that I kind of came into the loop, and it was just really kind of a fun, exciting experience for me to be involved with them. And
around what year was that? I'm curious.
Oh, years. I'm horrible with years.
Was it maybe like 2010 or 8, something like, I'm just guessing, but somewhere in there?
Yeah, it was probably 2008.
Okay.
Was when I was
probably... And I know like they would go to the trade show, I guess maybe just to the Craft and Hobby trade show, what was then called the Mega Show, and there would be like this huge like craziness around their booth.
Yeah, they were kind of like the Cotton and Steel of scrapbooking.
Okay. So that gives people I think that's a good analogy, so people can be like, oh, okay, now I see what you're saying.
Yeah. They were really different and kind of had some fresh new ideas that they brought to the table that people were really excited about. So it was really fun to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. And then everything kind of changed, between then, I guess, and now. And, I'm not a huge like follower of the scrapbooking industry, but I just know that a lot of this sort of went online, or I don't know exactly what happened with, Basic Gray in particular. But they, you were saying that Rachel really wanted this to be a surface pattern company. And so you can put those same designs that you might put on a paper onto fabric. And so there was like a contract with Moda, and you were involved in that.
Yeah, that contract was with Rachel, but
I see.
But when I was brought on full time, all those patterns that we created as a team together were contributed to those fabric lines. And so intermittently, all my designs were put on fabric as well, because they used those paper designs that we create for scrapbooking and just transfer them to fabric. Yeah, so that was a really fun experience, and it gave me some really interesting background experience to kind of the process of taking a digital pattern and making it into fabric. It's really kind of an interesting process, and probably a little bit more than people kind of realize that goes into that when
in what way
going through that process.
What do people sort of not really realize? They sort of look at a fabric collection and assume one thing, but really it's more complex.
Yeah, there's a lot of like just size variations and color variations that kind of come into play with that, where we would offer the color variations, and then Moda would come back with a lot of different swatches. Strike-offs, I think, is what they're called. And, we would have to pick from those. We'd have probably 40 strike-offs, and from that we would only be allowed, 40, or not 40, but like 20 designs. So we'd have to like cut that down in half. And in some cases it was easy. In some cases it was not. In some cases we were like, oh, that scale is way too big. We didn't realize that was going to be such a big part of the design. And just, there's a lot of different elements that go into creating fabric that when you're thinking of a line, especially, there's a lot of different things to consider, whether it's scale or how the color kind of creates, or how those two-tone patterns work with the four-color patterns. And you kind of need a hero and something that kind of spurs the line forward, which is very typical in scrapbooking as well. We'd have like two to three heroes in our scrapbooking line collection, and then we'd build off of those to create like more supportive patterns. And
right. And the hero is just like a print that is super eye-catching, or sort of is the centerpiece, and then the other pieces support that one.
Right.
Yeah.
But transferring that from scrapbooking to fabric is a little bit of a different process, where you're thinking how people are going to use this fabric in a quilt or in any other kind of crafting or fabric designs. There's a little bit of that goes into it as well.
Yeah, and from talking to other people who do this kind of work, it sounds to me like if you are a quilter, you have a better sense of how to design quilting fabrics versus if you really come at it just as a surface designer, and you've never made a quilt. Understanding how somebody is going to cut that fabric up and use it, sew it back together with other fabrics in a quilt is really informative, as when it comes to actually designing what the prints are going to look like.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. A lot of people have this dream of becoming a fabric designer, and I think becoming a quilter is one way to improve maybe what your portfolio looks like. Okay, so let me just ask couple final questions. First, do you keep a sketchbook?
I don't really. I should. I would like to. I'm not as good at doing that sort of thing that I'd like. I've actually been trying to do a little bit more watercolor. Taking my watercolors places and just actually painting to kind of get away from the computer and work on that a little bit more, to just kind of break my ability to to draw again, and to kind of remind my body that this is something that I am able to do. But I think I spend so much time kind of in managerial pursuits and working with the magazine that sometimes my creative side kind of ends up going out the door. So I've been trying to kind of get better in touch with that again. I actually just bought an iPad Pro to kind of help me with that, which is not really escaping from the computer, but it does kind of feel a little bit different, where the pen kind of offers some opportunities to feel like you're drawing, but then you could still have the luxury of erasing stuff if you don't like it.
There's some good Adobe apps for that.
Yeah, I've been kind of experimenting with Adobe Draw and Adobe Sketch, and Procreate is also a really cool one that I feel like has a lot of potential, but I'm not quite there yet. I need to kind of learn that program a little bit better.
Okay. And do you have other things that you like doing in your free time? Do you do yoga, or are you a runner or anything like that?
Yeah, I love yoga. I try to do that every day. It just kind of helps with my own sanity, and just physically helps me from hopefully counteracting all the sitting that I do for most of the day. I love to be outdoors. I love hiking, and try to get into the mountains here in Utah as much as I can to just kind of rejuvenate myself. I love to bake. I have a dog, so we go on lots of walks and playing in the park. She's kind of my constant companion and coworker. Although she needs to step it up as far as her workload
goes. Just sitting there looking at you while you work.
Yeah, she's sleeping all day long.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, I paddleboard. I actually just bought a paddleboard this year, and I've been kind of doing more of that, which has been fun.
Wow. And where do you do that?
We have a lot of lakes up in the mountains here. And so we just go up to the mountains, and it's usually best to find a little bit of a less, what is it called, choppy lake, where it's a little more serene and doesn't get a lot of wind and stuff, to do that sort of thing. But yeah, we have a lot of different areas that we can kind of go up to, and they're about, 30 minutes away from me, which is always nice.
Yeah, I've never been to Utah, so that sounds gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to make sure we get to your recommendations. So you have two things to recommend. The first one is Robert Kaufman's Railroad Denims, which you are saying that you find yourself using in all different kinds of projects.
Yeah, I can't get enough of them as of late. It started with the Funky Medina quilt that I made, and it just has kind of I continue to be drawn to that collection. And denims in general are kind of where I've been experimenting. I love their chambrays, their stripes, anything with stripes in it right now. I just kind of really love, and I love especially seeing how other people are using them a lot in their quilts. Gingham also is kind of starting to peek its head through a lot of different people's designs, and that's been really fun to see as well. But yeah, I can't get enough of those stripes and those denims for some reason. I can't get myself out of that color palette. I might start calling it my blue period because I can't escape it.
And are they
so every time I drop or something, I'm grabbing for it.
Are they as thick as like a jean denim, or they're a thinner hand?
They're not as thick as a jean denim. They're actually a little bit thinner. But I've also been using a heavier denim as well. I just love the feel of it when you put it in a quilt. It just is so heavy.
Yeah.
And kind of just makes that quilt just so cozy and awesome.
Yeah.
And they're going to wear forever because, denim lasts for such a long time.
It does. And I think there's some antimicrobial, sort of qualities of denim like wool, where I just feel like, you don't have to wash your jeans all the time. You can wear them a bunch of times. So I feel like that's also probably a good thing in a quilt,
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that.
It's hardy. And then you were saying that you also enjoy doing some improv work, especially inspired by Sherry Lynn Wood's 100 Days of Improv. And she's a past guest on this podcast and somebody who I really am inspired by as well.
Oh, yeah. She's my quilting hero. I just think she's amazing. I took a class from her a couple of quilt cons ago in Pasadena and just was really inspired by just her technique. She as a person in general is just lovely and kind and just the most genuine person, I think, that I know. And that's probably saying as a very blanket statement, but she really is quite lovely and kind, and I really just enjoyed getting to know her better. But yeah, she had this challenge, 100 Days of Improv, and I kind of took that at the beginning of the year and started doing it just as a way of kind of resparking my creativity. I feel like this year has kind of been that for me in a lot of different variables, just trying to kind of remember what it's like to be more creative and try to live more creatively in my personal life. So I started doing that once every day. I get to my sewing machine and just kind of sew these little pieces together, and I just really enjoyed it. It was so therapeutic for me after a day of sitting in front of the computer to just sit down at a sewing machine for 15 or 20 minutes. It usually ended up being more because I wanted to just keep going, but it's been really fun. I've actually created one quilt from that experience, and I have another one that just needs to be kind of pulled together, but I've been really kind of trying to be a little bit more thoughtful with that process. And I would actually like to see if I can try and enter it into QuiltCon this year. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. But it's really just been, if anyone feels uncreative, my personal suggestion is to you, that person would be to just, if you love quilting and you love quilting, just try and do a little bit of it every day. I've really felt the benefits of that, and just being able to sit down and create something every day that is lovely. And it might not be perfect, and it might be something you're like, well, that was interesting experience, but I really felt that creativity spurs creativity when you do that. It brings other ideas to the foreground, or helps you kind of work through some other things that you might be struggling with personally or just in your creative life, I've really found some benefits from that I've really enjoyed. So
yeah, and when you have to do it every day,
do it.
It becomes a lot less precious. The stakes are lower, and there's something so freeing about that, where you're just giving yourself permission to, I always say to my kids, you need to have enough supplies and enough time, enough permission just to fail a whole lot of times, so it's like just, putting these things together every day, and there's no expectation beyond the fact that you sat down and did it. And that's the expectation, instead of it being, the finished product has to be this perfectly composed thing or something.
Right. Yeah. There's no pressure there at all. It's just like, oh, I think I'll just take these little scraps and make something. And, oh, that turned out really interesting. Or, oh, I don't like that at all. Or that was really fun. I want to do more of that. So,
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it can be really fun.
The expectation is really just on the doing itself. And that removes the expectation being on the final product. And as you said, creativity begets creativity. So the more you do it and flex the muscle, the more you want to do it, and the more great stuff does eventually come forth.
Yeah,
absolutely. For sure. Well, Christine, thank you so much for just taking the time to sit down and talk with me after I know what was a really busy week last week out in Hamilton. So thank you for being a guest on the While She Naps podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. And you've been listening to the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Visit my blog, whileshenaps.com, where you can sign up for my email newsletter to get the best in sewing, blogging, and small business delivered right to your inbox each week. Today's episode was sponsored by Craft Industry Alliance, a vibrant trade association for makers, designers, suppliers, and content creators in the craft industry. Whether you quilt, knit, crochet, embroider, cross-stitch, or scrapbook, if you have a business in the industry, we are here to support you and provide you with up-to-date information on news, trends, best practices, and more. Join today at craftindustryalliance.org. And if you enjoy the show, tell a friend about it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.